I have two announcements to make, and following which I am available for questions on those or on anything else. The two announcements relate, the first is relating to the first high-level visitor that we would be hosting in the new year, and that is the President of Maldives, who will be visiting India on his first trip abroad. He will be here from the 1st to the 4th. As you are aware, His Excellency Mr. Abdullah Yamin Abdul Gayoom was elected recently as the new President of Maldives, and that he has chosen to visit India as his first destination abroad is a matter which we are gratified about, because it indicates the robust relationships between our two countries. On the 2nd of January, he will have delegation-level talks with the Prime Minister, and subsequently in the evening, he will meet the President, and the President will also host a banquet in his honor. As is usual for such high-level visitors, the President of Maldives will also visit Agra, which is now sort of a must-see destination for all visitors to India who haven't seen it before. You are all aware that we have close cooperation in Maldives in a variety of areas. These include economic cooperation, defense, health, security, maritime cooperation, including on piracy, drug trafficking, etc. And we have a common commitment to development, democracy, and peaceful coexistence. We do hope it is normal for our relationship to be strengthened by high-level visits, and we look forward to this visit of the President of Maldives to further strengthen our bilateral relations. In addition to that visit, we also will be playing host to the Minister of Labour from Saudi Arabia. Mr. Abdul bin Mohammed Sheikh will be visiting India from the 1st to the 3rd. Those of you who are following the issue of Nitakat in Saudi Arabia are also aware that he is the points person on these matters in Saudi Arabia. His visit to India is largely to try and finalize and hopefully sign an agreement regarding labor cooperation on domestic workers' recruitment. He is coming at the invitation of his counterpart here, that is Mr. Vailar Ravi, who is the Minister for Overseas Indian Affairs. Now, this is the first time that we are entering into agreement with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on labor-related matters. This stems from changes in Saudi law, where they have brought domestic workers into the ambit of their law. We hope that this will be the stepping stone for our cooperation on other labor matters, and we hope to, once this agreement is signed and finalized, we hope to work with them towards finalizing a more comprehensive agreement on all aspects of our labor cooperation. I think I have exhausted the announcements that I have to make, so we can begin with the issues that I have just mentioned, and then to other issues which may be keeping you occupied otherwise. Yes, Mr. Venkat Narayan.
Akbar, are any meetings lined up for the visiting Maldives president with executives of GMR and the Tatas who have had problems during Wahid's time? Thanks.
My understanding of the issue of GMR and the government of Maldives is that it is an arbitration, and that will take its due course, and both the government of Maldives and GMR have said that they will proceed on that lines. I have no idea of any specific meetings on that issue. Yes, Dipanjan?
This is on the Devyani Kopragat issue.
I think there's been a long time before you've come back here. The process is that we complete the questions on the issues that I've announced, and then on any other issue that you would like to. Well, just hold on for a minute. If anybody else has on Maldives or on the visit of the Saudi minister, otherwise I will give you the floor. Just a minute. Yes, sir. No.
The labor issue will be resolved. Both the Saudi Arabia facing the ousting, the exceeding labor.
Pardon?
The labor issue will be resolved after coming the Saudi Arabia labor minister.
Well,
so the laborer who is expecting coming out, the ousting from the Saudi Arabia.
Ousting? I didn't understand.
Remove all that labor.
No. Oh, yeah. No, I think what you are referring to is the Netakat program, and that we have been briefing you from time to time. The situation there is the following, and let me try and encapsulate it for your information. We have about 2.8 million Indians resident in Saudi Arabia. From the beginning of this year, when the Netakat program was implemented, approximately 130,000 plus have returned to India through various mechanisms. But in the same time, the number of Indians who've gone there is larger. So in essence, our view is that through dedicated efforts by the Indian community there, responses by them there, taking into account the advice that was provided by our government there, by our missions there, we have been able to overcome the difficulties that were being encountered there in a transitory manner, because this was a law which the Saudi government had decreed for everybody. It was not a law for India alone, but I think we been able to overcome those difficult times, and now we look to further enhance our bilateral cooperation with Saudi Arabia, including in the field of labor cooperation. Yeah, just a minute. Anybody else on this? Or on anything? On this? Yeah, Manish?
Akbar, are we looking to sign any new agreements during the visit? And is there a plan to pledge some developmental assistance?
Manish, you know the answer to that is that announcements for these visits are made following talks. We hope to have very intensive discussions between the President of Maldives and the Prime Minister of India, and following which, if there are announcements, and there are always announcements of a nature which may be of interest to you, because India and Maldives do have a very, very strong bond, and any visit here, there will be substantive outcomes, and may I request you to wait for those outcomes. On Maldives or Saudi Arabia? Yes, sure.
No, Saudi, you have some more details on this proposed agreement on domestic maids.
Well, let me try and explain. It's not only domestic maids, it is domestic workers. Now, these include a variety of workers. For your understanding, the number of maids that go from India to Saudi Arabia are very restricted, because we have fairly stringent requirements for that. I can explain to you in detail, some detail about those requirements. But the point here is that approximately 25 to 30% of Indian residents in Saudi Arabia would be covered by what they term as domestic workers. These include various types of domestic workers. I don't want to get into the details. So this is significant in terms of the large number of people it will cover. Now, what this agreement actually indicates is that following this, we will try and work out a standard work contract, which will stipulate requirements to be adhered to at the time of selection and emigration of those people outside India, their pay scales, their other requirements, etc. We are still in the process of that, but this is what will trigger off that discussion. Yes, Surya?
Given that the Saudis are now pushing their own locals into the market,
Is there any long-term assessment as to what the impact could be on us?
In a generic sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Let me just try to back off from today and tell you, in 20 years' time, over 2 decades, the number of Indian nationals resident in Saudi Arabia has grown from 450,000 to 2.8 million. So this is a steady growth path. Also, Indians have acquired a reputation of being a preferred community for the skills and discipline and dedication that they bring to their jobs in the entire Gulf, including Saudi Arabia, which has the largest number of Indian nationals abroad. In terms of Indian passport holders, as I said, 2.8 million, all of them virtually Indian passport holders, all of them, I think, except for a very small number. So as we see this, given the way that Indians are perceived in the region, we see that this steady growth process will continue. On this? Yes.
So I believe the President is also having a meeting with industry. Is there any update on who is meeting industry? And also, is there anything on how much investment India has made in Maldives post-Wahid?
Yeah, I will answer both those questions following this meeting. Sure. If there are none, then we go back to Dipanjan, who was the first to ask on another issue. Yes.
On the first accreditation, the concurrent accreditation that she had from the UN as an advisor, is there any update on it? Did the UN apprise the US State Department of that? If it hadn't, then, why it hadn't, and if it had, then why did the US State Department overlook it and why did she not emphasize on that while she was being handcuffed?
Dipanjan, you've asked an important question, and let me try and answer all aspects of your question. And while I think it's for the UN to make that formal announcement, having been an international civil servant myself, I would find it extremely surprising if an international organization does not periodically inform a host government about those who they have accredited. Now, in this case, the accreditation by the UN was done on 26th August. I would think that there are mechanisms in place, and my understanding is that there are mechanisms in the United Nations in place to periodically inform the host country about all those who have been accredited or have been granted access as in various categories to the United Nations General Assembly. And that's my understanding of where we stand on that. Now, as regards your question of why XYZ was not done, let me try and explain that also. As diplomats, we are aware of our ranks. The legal implication of all these is a matter for the lawyers to indicate. As far as she was concerned, she did repeatedly say that she was the Deputy Consul General of India in New York, and at no stage was she asked of whether they have any other additional entitlement of hers that would have helped her. And therefore, when the lawyers started checking these the way that is required to make a case, they did find this out, and they did find where the legal position was. And this was not something that was, as I said, unknown to the host government in terms of information flow. So let's not blame the victim in this regard for lack of information on the part of those who should have done should have followed this up and had been preparing for this case for a long time. Yes, on this, let's finish all these on this. Yeah, if there are none, then we go to something else. On this. Yes, Srinjoy?
Sir, the 23rd was the last date for the U.S. Embassy informing you of lots of other things about, pays and allowances and American schools. Now, since all that has not come, is this something that you have taken up with CBDT and that's the Finance Ministry? And on the one, we've heard that there was one American diplomat who helped the Richards family to leave India. Now, has the government of India, its different arms, been apprised of this, and is there any follow-up action being taken on this?
Yeah. Srinjoy, let me tell you that, yes, we had indicated time frames for various actions. The time frames where we could act, we've taken action. Now, there is another set of issues which required submissions and of detailed information from the U.S. Embassy and their consulates here. They did get back to us and indicated that currently, given the holiday season, they required more time for a response to be provided because the sort of details that were being asked required a lot of effort and collation and collection on their part. And they had requested for some more time. Now, subsequent to that, we have set in motion a process regarding how we will further proceed on this, and that entails a group of specialist officials who are experts in a variety of subjects to follow this on a regular basis, if necessary, on a day-to-day basis, and indicate how we should proceed on that matter. And that's where we are. I think all I can say is that we are processing a lot of information, variety of thoughts, and make no mistake, we are serious about processing and pursuing this matter. What the outcomes of those are, we will share with you when that process is complete, but please do give us the time and the space to work on those issues. And let me tell you, we have been working every day on these matters. Yes. Naz?
Actually, I want to go back to your answer to Dipanjan's question. You said it was after much labor that her lawyer found out the new information about her status as advisor to India's permanent mission in US. But why did not in MEA's legal department, why did it take so long to come out with this information?
Valid question, but I did not say that her lawyer find it out. I said what the privileges and immunities of a rank and a title are is the nitty-gritty of these is what the lawyers try and determine. These immunities and privileges date back to 1946 when the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution approved by every member present there about the privileges and immunities of various ranks, including those, the rank to which Devyani Khobragade was accredited to the United Nations. So tracing the immunity attached to a rank is a process that the lawyers do. I did not say to you that it was X, Y, or Z's lawyer that did it. I said it was the lawyers. And let me assure you, we have the best of lawyers in our international law department, including a lawyer who is present in the permanent mission of India in New York. So please don't try and interpret my words in a way which is different from what I said. On this? Yes, okay, Parul?
Has Devyani been granted diplomat status by the U.S. State Department? And there are reports today saying that the U.S. will not apologize unconditionally and that the case will continue. Do you have to say anything on
I
this
answer
matter?
only one question, so don't ask two.
Answer two.
Yeah, this is my choice, as I said. Okay, let me try and answer. As regards the first thing, let me tell you that Devyani is a diplomat and will be a diplomat. Now, as what you are perhaps asking is her status as an accredited diplomat with the UN, which has been recognized by the United States. That process, I think I would refer you to the briefing last evening by the State Department spokesperson. They have indicated that that process is on, they are examining it, and the outcome, when they communicate to us, we will certainly communicate to you. But as far as we are concerned, she was, is, and will remain an Indian diplomat. Yeah, there was another question I think Parul asked, but please go ahead.
So,
yeah, I'll answer that. Sure.
So the U.S. is trying to show that this was an incident on which the Indian reaction went overboard and it was not such an instance earlier. So just I want to know that whether there is any initiative from U.S. on any level to resolve the issue and just fill up the misunderstanding between the two countries, because in between some defense deals have also gone up. So whether on diplomatic or political level something is going on.
Let me tell you, the conversations we have do not reflect what you are saying. The conversation that we have reflect an understanding and a reflection of regret. And that reflection of regret has been communicated both by the U.S. Secretary of State, various other interlocutors, including yesterday evening or U.S. time by their spokesperson again, of what their position on this was. As regards whether we are in conversation with them, pardon? I didn't understand. Yes.
Taking any initiative from their side. U.S. is taking initiative from their side.
Well, they said they're examining it. When they get back to us, we will then respond to you. And then, yes, Parul had asked something. Can you just... Yeah, fine. You can take that.
No, I will ask about this report of U.S. not ready to apologize, and the other B part of my question is they will continue with the case. Yeah. What is the response?
I think, in pluralist democracies, there are different voices saying different things. As Foreign Office and as Ministry of External Affairs, we respond through the designated channels. And in this case, I would again request you to look at what the designated channels have said yesterday. And those do not indicate what you are mentioning. They indicate that a process is on, and we are awaiting the outcome of that process. We have been in conversation with them at a variety of levels, and they have not communicated to us that that process has completed, and therefore they are now in a position to communicate the final outcome of that process. But in a pluralist democracy, there are various channels which are operating simultaneously, and there are some who may have different views on different matters, and it's for them to express their view. We will go by what the State Department is communicating. Yes, Ranjit?
The American embassy implies a large number of Indian staff, and the American diplomats also engage Indian staff as domestic helps. So are they obliged to pay salaries according to their own law or Indian law?
I think you should ask this to them.
What is our understanding? Your understanding of that?
When they give us the details that we've asked for, we are expecting their responses. We will analyze and give you the outcome of those. Right now, we've asked for information, and it requires this information to be carefully cross-checked with a variety of sources. we will then take this up and inform you. So right now, as was told earlier, we had requested for detailed information, and that detailed information is still awaited. Yes, Geeta?
Just moving ahead with the same question that he asked, we've accessed a few pay slips and a few details of the pay that a visa clerk gets in the U.S. Embassy, or for that matter, visa staff gets in the U.S. Embassy, and that's abysmally low. Does the U.S. Embassy now stand in violation of labor laws because U.S. Embassy is U.S. territory, and that they should be paying equivalent to what they pay any U.S. national?
Geeta, what you've accessed is available to you. What we are awaiting is a authorized set of information from the U.S. government which indicates to us what the information that we've asked for is. We await that information, and we will certainly, as I said, we've already set up this group which will carefully monitor all these aspects and respond when the information comes to us. You have access information, and I have no doubt to that information that you have access is correct. But let us await the detailed information that we've asked them for, and that they have said they are in the process of collecting, but there is an issue of timing on that. We will get back to you on that. Yes, Santosh.
Sir, my question is on Syria.
Yes.
Geneva
Anyone else?
Okay.
Just if there is one more, and then we can go to Syria. Just 1 minute. I think Ranjana asked, and then we will ask. Yeah.
So that $4,500, which was wrongly put in that column for salary of the domestic help. So has the U.S. reacted to that? Have we informed them? What have they said?
As I said, every bit of information that we have has been provided to the U.S. State Department. Also, the lawyers are discussing these matters, and we have not yet got a final outcome of what their response based on the information that we have transmitted to them is. And they have repeated this. We've provided information as and when we've got this, and we've sought their responses. They have been in conversation with our colleagues in Washington, and once an outcome of that process is, we will take it at that, rather than go by information that is coming from a diversity of sources. Gaurav last, and then we go to something else.
Sir, somebody in the U.S. Embassy, are they in violation of Indian laws when they used diplomatic card or whatever to fly out Richard's family from India? Have we told them of this, and have they communicated to us on that?
Now, this is an information that was provided to us in terms of after the investigation began. We are ascertaining information on this matter, whether it is correct that this has happened, whether there are, because ultimately these requirements also entail taxes, and whether there was any infringement of Indian tax laws relating to purchase of tickets for non-diplomatic activities is a matter that will be pursued. We are ascertaining the information. We have some leads on this. And once we come to a conclusion on this, we will let you know. Because, as I told you, we have a group of very, very diligent and dedicated people working on all aspects of this. If that is ending, then we have Santosh. You want on this? On something else. Yes, Santosh.
Sir, Geneva 2 is scheduled on Syria. Whether India is participating in that?
You know, our interest in developments in Syria is well known. Now, In the recent past, we have had contacts at official levels, both with the government of Syria as well as the main opposition in Syria, that is the National Coordination Committee for Democratic Change. And we have evinced an interest in our participation. Now, my understanding is that formal invitations for the Geneva II conference, which is going to start on 22nd January, have not yet been issued by the United Nations. However, we have been informed fairly authentically that India would be among those countries who would be invited to this conference, and therefore we are now in the process of preparing for the participation in that conference, and this will be formalized when we get a formal invitation. Yes, sir.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe visited Yasukuni Shrine some days ago, and there are some negative response by some other countries. So how do you think of this visit and response by other countries?
This is for the other countries and Japan to discuss and take it forward. If you say ultimately under the Vienna Convention, which all of you are very closely following these days, issues of two countries is for those countries to work together and resolve. Yes, Ashok.
Who is going to be the chief guest for the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas and for the Republic Day? Pravasi Bharatiya Divas is very near. It is on the 7th of January. I think by this time a decision might have been taken as to who is going to be the chief guest for the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas.
I must confess that since the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas is organized by the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs, I am not aware, but I can find that out for you. As regards the Republic Day, this is still some time to go. We've traversed that before, and once we are ready, we will announce that. Yes.
Sir, the next 5th of January is the general election is scheduled in Bangladesh. Now it's clear that opposition is not participating. So do we have any comment on the legitimacy of this election?
You know, India and Bangladesh, the histories of our two countries are, the destinies of our two countries are intertwined. And therefore, we have an interest in the well-being of Bangladesh as they have an interest in our well-being, because we have such a long border, there is so much of movement of people-to-people activity, and we have a common cultural heritage. So we have an interest in what happens in Bangladesh, and it should not be a surprise because it is legitimate to have that interest, and they have a legitimate interest in our well-being. Now, effectively, what we desire for the people of Bangladesh is their well-being. We would wish them to overcome their differences, to be able to resolve their differences in a manner which is peaceful, which is done through dialogue and through discussion. And the outcome should be acceptable to all the people of Bangladesh. We do not have any intention to interfere in the internal affairs of Bangladesh, but as a friendly neighbor and a well-wisher, we do hope that the people of Bangladesh and their leaders can arrive at a solution and at outcomes which enable the people there to realize their aspirations. Rajiv?
Akbar, what is the status of the amphibious aircraft which Japan is going to sell us? and the status of the nuclear deal, and whether in the coming month during Shinzo Abe's visit, we can expect a breakthrough on these two counts.
On the first, I must confess I need to find that out, and once I find it out, I will share. On the second one, yes, we have, when the Prime Ministers met last in Tokyo, they had instructed their officials to work expeditiously for an early outcome. Since then, there have been meetings between the officials. We are trying to reach as early a conclusion as possible. Whether that meets a time frame that you may have in mind, I can't answer that. But let me tell you, officials from both sides are working in accordance with the directions of their principals towards an early outcome. Yeah, you wanted.
My question is pertinent to Indo-Pak relationship.
Yes.
After this DGMO's meeting, the Pakistan has proposed a meeting between the commerce secretaries of the two countries. Has India taken any decision?
What I'd like to draw your attention to is that when the commerce secretaries met last as part of the resumed dialogue process, and this was in September 2012, since then they haven't met, they agreed on what is called a sequential roadmap. Now that sequential roadmap remains in place. That sequential roadmap had provided for Pakistan taking the first step. And that first step was to notify the removal of all restrictions at the Wagah-Atari crossing. Subsequent to taking of this first step, there were other steps that India would take. So there is a sequential roadmap available, and we await Pakistan taking the first step as agreed between India and Pakistan at the Commerce Secretary's level. I think we would, at this stage, thank you very much and wish you a happy and eventful next year. And you and your families hopefully should have a pleasant time in 2014. Thank you.